Welcome back to Novel Idea. My name is Dia and this is Poppy. So today we are going to do a week in review. All right, so I didn't finish a whole lot this week. Again, exciting stuff, even though it isn't very much. So I'm going to go over the short stuff first. And so the first one that I'll tell you about is Crenshaw, and this is by Katherine Applegate. She's the author of The One and Only Ivan and The One and Only Bob and all of those. Crenshaw is about a young boy. He's 10, I think, in the story. And his family, his dad has some health issues, and his family is not doing well financially. The story kind of revolves around this make-believe friend that he has, and it's kind of a coping mechanism for him. Crenshaw is the name of the imaginary friend who happens to be a 7-foot cat. I ended up really liking this book a lot. A little hard for me to get into, but once I did, I really enjoyed the story, and it does have a very well-rounded overall story. So that's Crenshaw by Katherine Applegate. And then I read Hamster Princess by Ursula Vernon. When I was listening to Becca over at Read Becca, she said that T. Kingfisher had written these children's books, and I was like, what? I've never heard of these. And it's because T. Kingfisher is Ursula Vernon's pen name. And so I had no idea that she had other stuff out there. And so I immediately went and picked it up. And it's kind of a Sleeping Beauty story. And I really enjoyed it. In the story, the Hamster Princess, her name is Harriet. And she is destined to fall asleep when she turns 12 years old. And she is going to prick her finger on a hamster wheel. She figures out, though, that in order for this curse to work, she has to be alive. The curse absolutely is going to happen because you can't undo a curse completely. She kind of becomes a little bit of a daredevil, and that's where we get the Invincible from. Harriet, the Invincible Hamster Princess by Ursula Vernon, and it was really cute. All right, so the next book that I finished was Revelations by Mary Sharratt. This is about the life of Marjorie Kemp, 15th century, 14th century, I'm not sure which one. Early days of the church, and women were not looked upon as able to having any kind of revelation from God. It was a fascinating look at that period of time in history and what women suffered as a result of just wanting to live a pilgrim kind of lifestyle for this Christ that they had grown up being told of, but they weren't allowed to have any kind of personal relationship with. I really enjoyed it overall. It did have some very hard things in it, but like I said, hard times for women, especially in that day and age. And so the life of Marjorie Kemp, Revelations by Mary Sharratt. And then I finished Plutarch's Lives. I finished part 2, volume 2, whatever you want to call it. Really loved this book. It's divided into 2 volumes. I'm not sure why they divided it into 2 volumes. It's really important that if you guys read it, that you make sure that it is presented as it was originally written, which is side by side, parallel, basically. In fact, the original title was Parallel Lives. And it is arranged in pairs of political biographies, one Greek, one Roman, and Plutarch did that on purpose. So make sure that it's not divided up into Greeks and Romans, but that it is side-by-side comparisons with each, because the way that he finishes up each little political biography is with a laying out of kind of a moral or a historical verdict. And that is the way that it should be read, and not just as Greeks and as Romans. The reason why he put the certain Greek and the certain Roman together is because he saw that maybe their lives had a similar trajectory of where they were going. But I think just as much we get Plutarch putting these 2 together because he saw similarities in their personalities, not just the directions that their lives were taking, or did take, but that he saw them as similar people. And it allowed for him to do his comparison at the end in a much more unique manner because of that. The characters themselves within his little vignettes are very complex. He does not pull punches. There are some people that are just plain flat out dysfunctional, not at all admirable. And yet there's also people that start off not so admirable and end up being quite in a different place by the time their story comes to an end. He does all of this through anecdotes, and some of them are very familiar. You will recognize so many of these little stories within the biographies. I loved it. I mean, it made it very fun for me to read because I felt like I had a history with these characters already because I knew some of these anecdotes that he was using. Each life is presented in a kind of sequence, and that is, you know, birth and youth, and then education, and then kind of the end of the story as far as he's taking it. He puts out there these 2 lives, and he says something about them that you wouldn't necessarily have drawn for yourself just simply from the black and white facts on the page. Takes a little bit of liberty and does like a historical verdict. So there's one case where he is focusing in on a young boy. Now remember, this is at the end of a story. And he's focusing in on a young boy who is reading the histories of someone who is dead, and the quote unquote enemy of that character comes up and says, son, you know, what are you reading? And he shows him what it was that he was reading. And he then pronounces a historical verdict upon this character. And sometimes it's what you would expect, and sometimes it's not what you would have expected. And you don't necessarily get like all of the horrible end of someone's life or the brilliant end of someone's life. You get what history is going to look at and say, this person did this, they were a success. And anyway, I loved it. I loved it. I found so many characters that I had read about in other books that I didn't know were actual real people. And now I know more about that character, and thinking about where I have heard them in another story, I'm like, oh, that totally makes sense. And so it was just a joy. It was just a joy to read. I just loved it. It was intimidating to the point that it took me years and years and years to pick it up, but I picked it up and I read it, and it was wonderful. So now, what am I in the middle of? I am currently reading Thomas Merton's New Seeds of Contemplation. That is for Lent, and I am doing just little bits at a time, daily readings, all the way through Lent for as far as it will take me in the book. I am trying to get the group read for the Lent read-along that Christie Lewis at Dostoevsky in Space and Emma from Bookish Princess and Faith, maybe Faith in Books, I think might be one of the co-hosts of that read-along as well. So I'm also reading Garden Maker, which is by Purifoy is her last name, and it's all about little things that you do in order to prepare a garden, in order to make a garden. I'm still reading Wild Irish Girl for Feb Regency. It's a side of Regency era Europe that I was not familiar with, and I'm enjoying the Irish aspect of that story a lot. And then also, just today, have started just barely, Tarzan of the Apes. And I'm doing this with Dave and Olive over at Book Blather. I'm only 2 chapters in so far because that's what we decided to do per day. For right now, we may up the ante a little bit. But I really like Edgar Rice Burroughs' writing style, and I really like the kind of the descriptiveness of what he is telling us without being overly flowery. And I'm getting a really good sense of the characters so far. I haven't met Tarzan yet, but I have met his parents. So that's where I am with those. And anything else? Oh, I'm also listening to Seasparrow, which is by Kristin Cashore, and it is the 5th book in the Graceling realm. So when I've been cleaning and getting ready, we have company coming today. And as I've been cleaning and getting ready and doing that kind of stuff, I've been listening to Seasparrow on audio. So those are what I am in the middle of. That's it for me for a week in review. I'm really looking forward to having company this weekend. It's our one of our flatmates from when we lived down in Austin is gonna come up for a little visit, and Poppy is very excited. She knew him very well. They were with us when we rescued Poppy, so we're looking forward to having our friend Thomas here for a few days. He's going to be here for Poppy's 4th birthday. She turns 4 on Valentine's Day, and then we are going to be watching the Super Bowl, and I'll make snacks. I'm not gonna watch Super Bowl. I don't really watch sports, but I am a good snack maker, so I will do that. And yeah, we're just hoping to have a sweet time, sweet weekend with our friend. So I hope that you guys have fun plans for the weekend. Please let me know what they are. I would love to hear about them. Let me know also what you are reading right now and how you're enjoying it. And I will see you in the next video, everybody. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to. Bye.